On a rainy Saturday night in 2025, Cristiano Ronaldo walked into a small gym for a charity football match. The crowd went wild seeing the greatest player ever. But one coach did something nobody expected. She laughed at him, not a polite chuckle, a deep knowing laugh like she'd been waiting 30 years to see him again. Ronaldo stopped dribbling and stared at her in confusion. The whole arena went silent. Who was this mystery coach who dared laugh at Cristiano Ronaldo? And what shocking secret was about to turn his world upside down? The rain drummed against the windows of the Riverside Community Center like tiny fists knocking for attention. Inside, the old gym buzzed with excitement that made the air feel electric. Hundreds of families had packed the bleachers on this Saturday evening, their voices mixing together in a happy roar that bounced off the brick walls. 8-year-old Miguel Santos pressed his face against the metal barrier, his breath fogging up the cold surface. His mom had brought him early so they could get seats close to the pitch. Miguel wore his favorite Real Madrid jersey, the white one with number 7 on the back. He'd been saving his allowance for 3 months to buy it. "Is he really coming, Mom?" Miguel asked for the 10th time, bouncing on his toes. His mother smiled and ruffled his black hair. "Yes, Mijo, Cristiano Ronaldo will be here any minute." All around them, kids were asking their parents the same question. Would the greatest football player who ever lived really show up to play in their small town? It seemed too good to be true. The charity match had been planned for weeks. Retired football stars would play against local high school coaches to raise money for new books at 3 elementary schools. The schools needed help badly. Some kids didn't even have books to take home for homework. A door at the far end of the gym opened, and a hush fell over the crowd like someone had turned down the volume on a radio. Then the whispers started. "Is that him? Oh my God, it's really him, Cristiano Ronaldo." The man walking through the door looked exactly like he did on TV, just older. His hair was still perfectly styled, his shoulders still broad and strong. When he smiled, his white teeth seemed to light up the whole gym. Cristiano Ronaldo waved to the crowd, and the noise exploded like thunder. Kids screamed, parents cheered. Someone in the back started chanting CR7, 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 and soon everyone joined in. Miguel felt tears in his eyes, but he didn't care. His hero was right there, maybe 20 feet away. The man who could bend free kicks like magic and make impossible goals look easy. The man who never gave up even when his team was losing. Ronaldo began warming up, juggling a football with his feet like it was tied to him with invisible string. Even at 40 years old, he moved like water flowing downhill, smooth and natural and beautiful to watch. The other football legends warmed up too. There was Kaká, tall and graceful, signing autographs while he stretched. Ronaldinho practiced his famous tricks, making the ball dance on his foot. Roberto Carlos worked on his powerful shots. But everyone's eyes stayed on Ronaldo. He was the reason they were all here. On the other side of the pitch, the local coaches were warming up too. They looked nervous and excited at the same time. Most of them taught at nearby high schools. They were good coaches, but they weren't superstars. They were just regular people who loved football and wanted to help raise money for kids who needed books. One of the coaches caught Miguel's attention. She was a woman, maybe 40 years old, with long black hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her warm-up kit was old and faded, but she moved like she knew what she was doing. While the other coaches seemed starstruck by the famous players, she looked calm and focused. Her name tag said Coach E. Silva, Lincoln High School. Miguel watched Coach Silva practice free kicks. She didn't miss a single one. Her technique was perfect, smooth and consistent like she'd done it a million times before. The match was supposed to start in 10 minutes. Ronaldo finished his warm-up and walked toward the center of the pitch. The crowd got louder if that was even possible. Camera phones flashed like tiny lightning bolts. That's when it happened. Coach Silva looked up from her free kick practice and saw Ronaldo walking toward her side of the pitch. For a moment, her face went completely blank like she was seeing a ghost. Then she started laughing. It wasn't a small giggle or a polite chuckle. It was a deep knowing laugh that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her chest. She laughed like someone had just told her the best joke in the world, or like she'd just figured out the answer to a puzzle that had been bothering her for years. The strange thing was, nothing funny had happened. Ronaldo was just walking normally, juggling his football and nodding to fans. There was no reason for anyone to laugh, but Coach Silva kept laughing, and she was looking right at him, not at his famous teammates or the cheering crowd or the TV cameras, just at him. Ronaldo noticed. How could he not? In a gym full of screaming fans and flashing cameras, one person was laughing at him like she knew something nobody else did. He stopped walking, the football stopped bouncing and rolled away across the polished floor. For the first time all evening, Cristiano Ronaldo looked confused. The gym began to quiet down as people noticed something was happening. The energy changed from excitement to curiosity. Why had the great Cristiano Ronaldo stopped in the middle of the pitch? Why was he staring at that coach? Ronaldo took a few steps toward Coach Silva. His famous confidence seemed to flicker for just a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried across the quiet gym like he was talking through a microphone. "What's so funny, Coach?" Silva's laughter faded to a smile, but her eyes stayed bright with whatever private joke she was enjoying. She shook her head slowly like she was deciding whether to share a secret. "Nothing, Mr. Ronaldo," she said, and her voice was different now. Softer, gentler, like she was talking to an old friend instead of a football legend. "Nothing at all." But the way she said his name made it sound special. Not like she was talking to a famous stranger, but like she was talking to someone she'd known for a long time. Ronaldo stared at her for another few seconds. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe, or a memory trying to surface. For just a moment, he looked less like a football superstar and more like a regular person trying to remember where he'd heard a song before. Then the referee blew his whistle, and the spell was broken. The crowd cheered again. Players took their positions. The match was about to begin. But as Ronaldo walked to center for the kickoff, he kept glancing back at Coach Silva, and she kept watching him with that same mysterious smile like she was enjoying a wonderful secret that only she understood. Miguel pressed closer to the barrier, sensing that something important had just happened, even if he didn't understand what it was. The match was starting, but somehow he knew the real story was just beginning. The referee tossed the ball high into the air, and the match began. But the real game, the one that mattered most, had started the moment Coach Silva laughed at Cristiano Ronaldo like she'd been waiting 30 years to see him again. Ronaldo sprinted for the opening play, his body moving like it remembered being 25 years old. Even at 40, he could still outrun players half his age. The crowd roared as he controlled the ball with his famous first touch. This was supposed to be fun, a simple charity match where the football legends would put on a good show, score some easy goals, and let the local coaches play their hearts out before losing by 5 goals. Everyone would go home happy, and the schools would get their money for new books. But something felt different from the very first play. Kaká dribbled forward, looking for Ronaldo to make an easy pass. Ronaldo ran to his favorite position on the right wing, the same place where he'd scored thousands of goals. Kaká passed him the ball, and Ronaldo controlled it exactly where he expected to, except Coach Silva was already there waiting for him, not running to catch up, not scrambling to defend. She was standing in the exact spot where Ronaldo wanted to go, like she'd known he was coming before he did. Ronaldo stopped, surprised. In 20 years of professional football, very few people had ever predicted his moves that well. He looked at Coach Silva, and she looked back at him with those same bright eyes that seemed to know secrets. "Good defending, Coach," Ronaldo said, touching the ball gently. "Thank you," she replied. "You always did like that position on the pitch." "Always did?" Ronaldo's eyebrows went up. When had she seen him play before, and why did her voice sound so familiar? Before he could think about it more, Coach Silva tackled the ball cleanly from his feet. It happened so fast that Ronaldo barely saw it coming. She dribbled forward like she was 20 years younger, her ponytail flying behind her. The crowd gasped. Someone had just taken the ball from Cristiano Ronaldo. Silva passed to one of her players, a tall kid from Lincoln High School who looked nervous but determined. The kid scored with a perfect shot into the top corner, and the local team scored first. Miguel pressed against the barrier, his mouth hanging open. This wasn't how charity matches were supposed to go. The famous players were supposed to win easily while making everyone laugh and cheer. But Coach Silva's team was playing like they actually wanted to win. Ronaldo brought the ball forward again, more focused now. He tried his famous step-over move that had fooled defenders for decades, but somehow, Coach Silva was ready for that too. She didn't fall for the fake, she stayed right with him, her feet moving in perfect rhythm with his. "How did you know I was going right?" Ronaldo asked as they ran back. Coach Silva just smiled that mysterious smile. Lucky guess. But it wasn't luck, and they both knew it. The match continued, and something amazing started to happen. The local coaches weren't just playing hard, they were playing smart. Coach Silva seemed to know exactly what Ronaldo and his teammates were going to do before they did it. When Kaká tried his famous through ball, Silva's midfielder was already in position to intercept it. When Ronaldinho went for his signature trick, Silva had coached her defender to read it perfectly. When Roberto Carlos tried his powerful shot, Silva's goalkeeper was ready. During the first break, Ronaldo's teammates gathered around him. "Cristiano, what's going on out there?" Kaká asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "That coach is reading us like we're playing from a book she wrote." Ronaldinho shook his head in amazement. "She's calling out our moves before we make them. How does she know our old techniques?" Ronaldo looked across the pitch at Coach Silva, who was calmly talking to her team. There was something about the way she moved her hands when she talked, something that made his chest feel tight, like when you're trying to remember a song you used to love but can't quite recall the words. "I don't know," Ronaldo said quietly, "but I'm going to find out." The second half was even more surprising. Silva's team took the lead, 2-1. The crowd was going wild because this was turning into a real football match instead of just a fun show. But Ronaldo wasn't thinking about winning or losing anymore. He kept watching Coach Silva, trying to figure out why everything about her seemed so familiar. The way she clapped her hands to encourage her players, the way she called out instructions, even the way she adjusted her ponytail during breaks. With 5 minutes left in the match, Ronaldo found himself defending against Coach Silva directly. She had the ball, and they were face to face for the first time all night. "I know you," Ronaldo said quietly, so only she could hear. Coach Silva controlled the ball slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "Do you?" "Yes, I just can't remember from where." For a moment, neither of them moved. The crowd faded away. The other players became invisible. It was just the two of them standing in the middle of a football pitch with 30 years of mystery hanging in the air between them. Then Coach Silva did something that made Ronaldo's heart skip a beat. She did a perfect step over, the exact same move she had defended against just minutes earlier. But it wasn't just any step over. It was the specific step over that Ronaldo had learned when he was 8 years old, practicing on a dusty field behind his house in Madeira. A step over that only one person had ever taught him. The memory hit him like lightning, but it was gone before he could catch it. Just a flash of summer days in worn-out boots and someone laughing as they played football until the streetlights came on. Coach Silva scored easily while Ronaldo stood there stunned. As they ran back, she looked at him one more time. "Some things never change, Cristiano. You're still easy to read when you're thinking too hard." The final whistle sounded. Silva's team won 3-2. The crowd was on their feet, cheering for the biggest upset in charity match history, but Ronaldo barely heard them. He was thinking about that step over and the way Coach Silva had said his name like she'd said it 1,000 times before, when they were both young and the world was full of endless possibilities. As both teams shook hands, Ronaldo walked down the line congratulating Silva's players. They were all grinning and saying things like "Great match, Mr. Ronaldo, and thank you for coming." Nice kids who had just played the match of their lives. Finally, he reached Coach Silva at the end of the line. "Great match, Coach," he said, extending his hand. She took it, and for a moment neither of them let go. Her hand felt small in his but strong, familiar somehow, though Ronaldo couldn't figure out why. "Thank you, Cristiano," she said quietly. "You played beautifully, you always did." There it was again, always did. "Have we met before?" Ronaldo asked, still holding her hand. Coach Silva looked around at all the people watching them. Kids were taking pictures with their phones. Parents were cheering. TV cameras were recording everything. She seemed to realize that this wasn't the right place for whatever conversation they needed to have. "Not here," she said gently, pulling her hand away. "Not now." "Wait," Ronaldo called after her as she started to walk toward her celebrating team. He'd spent 20 years learning to trust his instincts, and every instinct he had was screaming that this woman was important. "Please, I need to know, why were you laughing when you first saw me, and how did you know all our moves?" Coach Silva stopped walking, her shoulders tense like someone had asked her a question she didn't want to answer. Slowly, she turned around. For a moment, her face looked vulnerable, like she was a little girl who had been caught keeping a secret, but then she took a deep breath and became a coach again. "Some things are better left in the past, Cristiano," she said softly. But as she said his name, something in her voice made Ronaldo's chest tighten. It was the same feeling he got when he heard a song from his childhood or smelled his grandmother's cooking or saw an old picture that brought back memories he thought he'd forgotten. "Please," Ronaldo said, and he was surprised by how desperate he sounded. "I know this sounds crazy, but I feel like I know you. Like I've known you for a long time. Coach Silva's eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't try to hide them. You do know me, Cristiano, but you were just a little boy then. We both were. Before Ronaldo could ask what she meant, Coach Silva's players surrounded her. They were laughing and talking all at once, asking her to pose for pictures and sign autographs. The moment was broken. Ronaldo watched as she was swept away by the celebration, but just before she disappeared into the crowd, she looked back at him one more time. Some dreams come true exactly the way they're supposed to, she called out over the noise, even when it takes 30 years. Then she was gone, swallowed up by happy players and proud parents and flashing cameras. Ronaldo stood there for a long time, people swirling around him like he was a rock in a river. Kids asked for autographs, and he signed them without really seeing what he was writing. Adults shook his hand and congratulated him on a great match, and he thanked them without really hearing what they said. All he could think about was Coach Silva's voice saying his name like she'd said it 1,000 times before, and that step over, and the way she controlled the ball exactly like he did. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a little boy was trying to remember a summer day when the sun was warm and the football felt light in his feet, and someone was teaching him that dreams could come true if you practiced hard enough and believed in yourself. Someone who laughed when he scored good goals and encouraged him when he missed. Someone who made football feel like magic instead of just a game. Someone whose name started with an E. But every time he almost remembered, the memory slipped away like water through his fingers. Ronaldo looked around the emptying gym one more time, hoping to catch another glimpse of Coach Silva. But she was already gone, taking all her secrets with her. For the first time in his life, Cristiano Ronaldo felt like he'd lost something more important than a football match. That night, Ronaldo lay in his hotel bed staring at the ceiling. The red numbers on the digital clock glowed in the darkness, 2:47 a.m. He'd been lying there for hours, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Coach Silva's face and heard her voice saying his name like she'd known him forever. He kept thinking about that step over, the way she controlled the ball, the way she said, "You always did like that position on the pitch." Most of all, he couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said at the end, "You do know me, Cristiano, but you were just a little boy then." When had he been just a little boy, and who was the girl with the name that started with E? Ronaldo sat up in bed and grabbed his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. Carlos Rodriguez, his old friend who had organized the charity match. It was almost 3 o'clock in the morning, but Ronaldo couldn't wait any longer. "Cristiano?" Carlos's sleepy voice answered after 4 rings. "Is everything okay? Do you know what time it is?" "Carlos, I need to ask you about Coach Silva," Ronaldo said without saying hello. "The woman who beat us tonight. Elena Silva." Elena. The name hit Ronaldo like a punch to the stomach. Elena. E for Elena. Why did that name make his heart race? "Tell me about her," Ronaldo said, getting out of bed and pacing around his hotel room. "Where did she come from? How long has she been coaching?" Carlos sounded more awake now. "She's been at Lincoln High for about 5 years. Great coach. Really cares about her kids. The players love her." "Why are you asking? What about before Lincoln High? Where was she before that?" There was a pause. "I don't know, Cristiano. I never really asked. She showed up 5 years ago looking for a coaching job, and Principal Martinez hired her right away. She had good references and knew football inside and out." "Why? What's this about?" Ronaldo stopped pacing. "I think I knew her when I was a kid, but I can't remember how." "You think you knew her? Cristiano, you meet thousands of people. Maybe she was just a fan who..." "No," Ronaldo interrupted. "This is different. She knew things about my game that I've never shown anyone. Old moves I learned when I was 8 years old. And the way she said my name." Carlos was quiet for a moment. "You want me to find out more about her?" "Yes," Ronaldo said immediately. "Everything you can. Where she grew up, where she went to school, what she did before coaching." "Can you do that?" "I'll make some calls in the morning," Carlos promised. "But Cristiano, maybe you should just ask her yourself." "I tried. She won't talk about it. She says some things are better left in the past." After hanging up, Ronaldo couldn't sit still. He got dressed and went for a drive through the empty streets. Without really planning to, he found himself driving toward Lincoln High School. The school was dark except for a few security lights in the parking lot. It was an old building, probably built in the 1960s, with brick walls and tall windows. Ronaldo parked his car and walked around the building until he found the gym. Through a window, he could see the football pitch inside. It was smaller than professional pitches, with wooden bleachers on both sides and old championship banners hanging from the ceiling. This was where Coach Silva worked every day, teaching kids to love football the way someone had taught him. "Can I help you?" Ronaldo turned around. An older man in a security guard uniform was walking toward him with a flashlight. "I'm sorry," Ronaldo said. "I was just looking around." "I'm Cristiano Ronaldo." The security guard's eyes went wide. "No kidding. The Cristiano Ronaldo. What are you doing here at 3 o'clock in the morning?" "I wanted to see where Coach Silva works," Ronaldo said honestly. "She's an old friend." The guard smiled. "Coach Silva. She's something special, that one. Been here every Saturday morning for 5 years, running free football camps for kids who can't afford the expensive ones. Never asks for anything in return. She's here on Saturdays? Every Saturday at 8 a.m. Got about 20 kids who show up regular. Some of them don't have much at home, but Coach Silva makes sure they get a good breakfast and learn some football. She uses her own money to buy them boots and equipment." Ronaldo felt his chest tighten again. That sounded exactly like something Elena would do. "But who was Elena?" "You said she's an old friend," the guard asked. "I think so," Ronaldo said. "But I'm not sure. It was a long time ago." The guard nodded like that made perfect sense. Sometimes the best friendships start when we're too young to remember all the details, but the heart remembers, you know. Ronaldo thanked the guard and drove back to his hotel, but he couldn't sleep. At 6 a.m., he made a decision. If Coach Silva was going to be at the school at 8 a.m., he was going to be there too. He needed answers, and he wasn't going to stop looking until he found them. At 7:45 a.m., Ronaldo was sitting in his car in the Lincoln High School parking lot, waiting. A few minutes later, an old blue Honda pulled into the parking lot. Even from a distance, Ronaldo could see Coach Silva getting out of the car. She was carrying a big bag of footballs and what looked like breakfast for 20 kids. Ronaldo got out of his car and walked toward her. When she saw him, she stopped walking and stared. "Cristiano, what are you doing here?" "I came to help," Ronaldo said simply. "And to remember." For a long moment, they looked at each other across the empty parking lot. The morning sun was just coming up, painting everything in soft golden light. "Some memories are painful, Cristiano," Coach Silva said quietly. "Maybe," Ronaldo replied. "But forgetting someone important is worse." Silva's eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. "The kids will be here soon. They don't need to see their coach crying." "Then let me help you carry those footballs," Ronaldo said. "And maybe you can tell me about a little girl named Elena who used to play football a long time ago." Coach Silva smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. "You really don't remember, do you?" "No," Ronaldo admitted. "But I want more than I've ever wanted anything." Together they walked toward the gym, carrying footballs and breakfast. And 30 years of questions that were finally going to be answered.